What would your life look like if no one could hurt you anymore? Not because the world got kinder, not because they stopped lying, leaving, or betraying, but because nothing they did could reach you. Imagine that. No collapse after rejection, no spiral after betrayal, no begging for closure that was never coming. Most men think they'll reach that point by avoiding pain, by cutting people off, by building walls so high that nothing gets in. But here's the truth. Walls don't make you strong, they just make you smaller. Carl Jung knew this. Real invincibility isn't about isolation, it's about integration. It's not about becoming cold, it's about becoming whole. Because the man who is whole can walk through fire and come out untouched. Most men think safety means distance. If you've been betrayed, you stay guarded. If you've been humiliated, you keep your head down. If you've been abandoned, you stop letting anyone close. It feels smart. It feels like strength, but it's not. It's just fear, dressed up as wisdom. Jung would say that repression is the mind's oldest trick. You lock away the memories, the emotions, the vulnerabilities, and call it moving on. But you haven't moved anywhere. You've built a prison, and you're the only one inside. Avoidance doesn't make you untouchable. It makes you fragile, just in hiding. Because the moment life pushes you out of that comfort zone, the same wounds you buried will resurface. The same fears, the same shame. You've only delayed the pain, not destroyed it. Jung knew that the only real safety comes from integration, bringing every wound, every flaw, every rejected part of yourself into the light. Why? Because what you refuse to face will always have power over you. The man who hides from life can't be hurt less. He can only live less. And the man who lives less is already broken. Pain doesn't come from what happened, it comes from what you told yourself it meant. When she walked away, the pain wasn't in her leaving. It was in the story you built around it. I wasn't enough. I failed. I'll never have this again. When your friend betrayed you, the wound wasn't their action. It was your belief that loyalty was guaranteed. Carl Jung saw this clearly. Events don't break you. The identity you've tied to those events does. You've mistaken the mask for the man, and when the mask cracks, you think it's you shattering. But who you really are can't be touched. Your core, the part of you that exists before labels, relationship status, isn't destroyed by rejection. It isn't stained by betrayal. It isn't reduced by failure. It's only when you outsource your worth, handing it to other people, to their approval, their recognition, their love, that they gain the power to hurt you. And here's the hard truth. They don't even have to try. All they have to do is stop giving you what you've been living for. Jung's answer wasn't to harden. It was to stop depending. The day you stop tying your value to how the world treats you is the day the world loses its grip on you. And that's the first step toward becoming untouchable. You can't be untouchable if you're still ashamed of yourself. The world will always find the crack you're trying to hide, the insecurity you avoid, the weakness you deny. And when they hit it, you'll crumble. Carl Jung called this the shadow, the parts of you you've rejected, buried, or refused to acknowledge, your envy, your fear, your arrogance, your rage. The more you deny them, the more power they have over you. Because what's in the shadow doesn't disappear, it waits, and it reacts. This is why you explode when insulted, why you spiral when criticized, why you panic when someone sees through the mask. They aren't hurting your core self, they're pressing on a wound you've refused to heal. Integration is the cure, not perfection, not polishing yourself into a flawless statue. Integration means owning everything you are, especially the parts you're afraid to show. When you accept your flaws, no one can weaponize them. When you admit your fears, no one can use them to control you. When you face your capacity for darkness, you're no longer blindsided by it. The man who has met his shadow walks through the world with quiet power. Not because he's untouchable in the sense of being invincible, but because there's nothing left in him to be exposed. You want real immunity? Stop hiding. Start integrating. The man who owns all of himself can't be blackmailed by life. Most people treat pain like poison. They try to flush it out as fast as possible, distract themselves, numb themselves, run from it. But Jung would tell you, pain is data. Every criticism, every betrayal, every rejection is feedback. Not about them, about you. The insult that makes you furious, it's pointing to a truth you haven't made peace with. The betrayal that shatters you, it's showing you the part of yourself that was still dependent on someone else's loyalty. The rejection that leaves you gutted, it's telling you that your sense of worth is still tied to external validation. When you start listening to pain instead of fighting it, it changes form. It stops being something that happens to you and becomes something you can use. That's emotional alchemy, taking the blow and turning it into strength. You see, the untouchable man doesn't avoid pain. He harvests it. He studies what it reveals. He trains the weak points it exposes. He thanks it for showing him where he's still vulnerable. That's not softness. That's not masochism. That's control. And the more you practice it, the fewer soft spots you have for the world to hit. Because here's the secret. Life will never stop testing you. The insults, the betrayals, the losses, they don't disappear. But when you meet each one as a teacher, you stop being a victim of them. The pain that once broke you becomes the forge that builds you. And eventually there's nothing left for them to use against you. Most men think untouchable means armored. A wall of indifference, a face that never shows, a heart that never opens. But that's not strength, that's fear wearing steel. Jung's truth is more dangerous. You can walk through the world with no armor at all and still be safe. Because safety doesn't come from what you hide behind, it comes from what you've built inside. When you've integrated your shadow, when you've stopped outsourcing your worth, when you've turned pain into strength, you can stand exposed, open, fully yourself, and no one can use that openness against you. They can try to humiliate you, but you've already faced the parts they mock. They can leave you, but you don't source your worth from being chosen. They can betray you, but your stability was never in their hands. Without armor, you move freely. You can love without fear of loss. You can speak without fear of judgment. You can take risks without fear of collapse. Because nothing they do can reach the place you live from now. And that's the paradox. The man who is most open is the man who is most untouchable. The man who trusts himself completely doesn't need to control the world around him. And when you reach that point, life stops feeling like something you have to defend yourself from. It becomes something you can finally experience, fully and without fear. Here's the moment most men miss. You don't become untouchable by eliminating the people who can hurt you. You become untouchable by eliminating the version of you that can be hurt. Not by turning into stone, not by pretending nothing matters, but by reclaiming every piece of yourself you've given away. To lovers, to friends, to strangers, to their opinions, to their approval. The betrayal you can't forgive, the insult you still remember, the loss that still wakes you at night. They only have power because you're still living in the past where they happened. Carl Jung would tell you, until you make peace with your shadow, until you take back your projections, you'll keep giving other people the keys to your emotional life. And here's the truth that should hit you hardest. They're not even holding on to those keys. You left them on the table and walked away. Untouchable isn't a state the world will hand you when you've suffered enough. It's a decision, a practice, a daily commitment to stop letting your worth be outsourced. It's looking at every wound and saying, "This is mine, I own it, I integrate it, and now it has no hold over me." Once you do that, people can still try to hurt you. But they're just pressing buttons you've disconnected from the power source. They can call you names, but you've already faced the truth of who you are. They can leave, but your value isn't determined by who stays. They can fail you, but you were never leaning on them to stand. And here's the paradox. When nothing can hurt you, you stop fearing connection. You stop holding back. You stop living small. You can love fully, speak freely, and risk boldly. Because nothing that happens can take anything from you that you haven't already reclaimed. This is Jung's truth. It's not about avoiding the fire. It's about walking into it knowing it can't burn you anymore. And if you really hear this, you'll stop waiting for the world to become safe and start becoming the man who doesn't need it to be. Because the day you stop giving away your power, you stop being breakable. So here's the invitation. Don't numb yourself. Don't harden yourself. Build yourself. Face every shadow. Reclaim every piece. And become the man the world can touch, but never move. If this spoke to something you've been carrying, pass it on. Like it, share it, speak it, and drop a comment below, because sometimes hearing your own truth spoken out loud is the first step to owning it. The world won't change, but you can. And once you do, nothing and nobody will ever hurt you again.